If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the like button. Your support helps us share more amazing stories. My name is Claire, and until a certain night, I thought I knew exactly where my life was heading. Everything was predictable. The house I kept tidy, the meals I cooked, the way my husband and I followed the same daily rhythm. He would leave early in the morning for his job at the office, return late, exhausted, and then fall asleep on the couch with the television murmuring in the background. We were married, yes, but sometimes it felt like we were living in separate worlds. That's why I noticed every small change. In the quiet of my evenings, when you spend long hours alone, even the faintest sound carries weight. That night, it wasn't the hum of the refrigerator or the ticking clock that caught my attention. It was the crunch of gravel outside my window. I paused, listening closely, my heart beating just a little faster than usual. Through the curtains, I saw a figure moving across the yard. At first, fear gripped me, but then I recognized him, Daniel the gardener. He'd worked for our neighborhood for years, keeping the lawns trimmed and the hedges shaped. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair that always seemed to fall into his eyes. I'd spoken to him before, always casually, always politely, but seeing him there under the soft glow of the garden lights felt different. I opened the back door, my voice sharper than I intended. Daniel, it's late. What are you doing here? He turned, startled, then gave me a small, sheepish smile. I'm sorry, Mrs. Clare. I didn't mean to scare you. I just needed to ask you something, and I thought maybe now was the right time. The right time? His words unsettled me. Who shows up at a married woman's house at 10 at night to ask a question? Still, there was something in his tone, an urgency, almost a tremble, that kept me from shutting the door. What is it? I asked cautiously. He stepped closer, his face half in shadow. I know this is unusual, but I can't keep it to myself anymore. Every time I see you out here watering the flowers, hanging laundry, I feel something I've never felt before. And I need you to know. My breath caught. His confession hit me like a storm I hadn't prepared for. Daniel, I whispered. You can't say things like that. You know I'm married. I do, he said quickly, his eyes locking onto mine. I respect that. I respect you, but respect doesn't make these feelings disappear. I've tried to ignore them. I've buried myself in work, told myself it was just admiration. But the truth is it's more. It's so much more. For a moment, I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. My fingers tightened on the doorframe, and my mind spun in a dozen directions at once. This was wrong. So wrong. And yet the sincerity in his voice, the vulnerability in his posture made it impossible to dismiss him outright. I forced myself to stand tall. Daniel, listen to me. I appreciate your honesty. But this isn't something we can entertain. My husband. He interrupted softly, almost pleading. Your husband is never here. Every time I come by, I see you alone. Do you know how hard it is to watch you sit on the porch, staring into the distance like you're waiting for someone who never comes? His words stung. They weren't cruel, but They were true. My husband's absence had become a shadow I carried every day. And now here was Daniel shining a harsh light on it. I swallowed hard. That doesn't matter. I made vows. Daniel. And whatever you think you see, it doesn't give you permission to feel, he asked, stepping even closer. I'm sorry, Claire. I'm sorry if this makes things harder. But I had to tell you, keeping it inside was tearing me apart. The intensity in his eyes unnerved me. I stepped back into the house, trying to regain control. You should go. Please. Before this goes any further. For a moment, he didn't move. His jaw clenched, his shoulders rising and falling with uneven breaths. Then slowly, he nodded. I'll go. But Claire, just know this. You're not invisible. Someone sees you. Someone values you. He turned and walked back into the shadows of the garden, leaving me standing there, my pulse hammering, my mind a blur. I closed the door and locked it, pressing my back against the wood. The house was silent again, but the silence wasn't comforting. It was deafening. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. My husband had called earlier. His voice rushed, distracted, telling me he'd be working late again. I'd hung up with a polite goodbye, not daring to mention the gardener's visit. How could I? But even as I tried to push Daniel's words out of my mind, they echoed louder. You're not invisible. The following days were torture. Every time I stepped outside, I half expected to see him again. I avoided the garden, avoided the porch, even avoided the windows. But avoidance didn't erase the memory of the way he looked at me, the way his voice trembled when he confessed. One afternoon, while I was folding laundry in the living room, I saw movement through the blinds. My heart skipped. Daniel was there again, trimming the hedges like nothing had happened. He didn't look up at my window, didn't acknowledge me, but just the sight of him made my chest tighten. That evening, my husband called once more to say he'd be home late. I set the phone down and sat in silence, the walls closing in around me. I couldn't tell if I was angry, lonely, or simply restless. Maybe it was all three. Then came the knock. Soft, hesitant at the back door. My breath caught and I froze. Part of me wanted to ignore it, but my feet carried me forward. When I opened the door, Daniel stood there again, his expression unreadable. Claire, he said gently, I promised I wouldn't bother you again. But I need to ask you one thing. Just one. My voice was barely a whisper. What is it? His eyes searched mine, his words slow, deliberate. Will you let me show you what it feels like to be truly seen? Just once. No one has to know. The world seemed to stop. My grip tightened on the doorframe as I tried to process what he just asked. I should have shouted, should have slammed the door, should have done anything except stand there speechless. But that's exactly what I did. Speechless. Because the truth was, I wasn't sure if I was shocked by his request or by how much a part of me wanted to say yes. I closed the door that night without answering Daniel's question, but the echo of his words clung to me like perfume that wouldn't fade. Will you let me show you what it feels like to be truly seen? The more I replayed it, the more dangerous it became. Because deep Down I knew he was touching a part of me that had been quietly starving for years. The next morning, sunlight spilled across the kitchen floor, but instead of feeling warm, it felt exposing. My husband had left before dawn, leaving only a note on the counter. Don't wait. Up. Late meeting again. I stared at the paper longer than I should have, wondering how many more times I'd be reading the same excuse. Later that afternoon, as I stood by the sink, I caught sight of Daniel outside. Again. He wasn't looking toward the house, but I couldn't stop looking at him. Every deliberate movement, the way his muscles flexed as he worked, the way he paused to wipe the sweat from his brow, made my chest tighten. I hated myself for noticing, yet I couldn't look away. When I finally stepped outside with a basket of laundry, he turned and caught my eye. That look, steady, unwavering, unashamed, froze me in place. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then he spoke, his voice calm but heavy. I meant what I said, Claire. I won't push you, but I also won't lie about what I feel. I swallowed hard, trying to find my voice. And what do you expect me to do with that, Daniel? He sat down the hedge trimmer, wiping his hands on a cloth. Nothing. Unless you want to. The air between us grew heavy, almost unbearable. I forced myself to turn away. But inside, my thoughts spiraled. How had I gotten here? Torn between loyalty to a husband who was never home, and the dangerous attention of a man who refused to look away. That evening, my husband called once again, his tone hurried. Sorry, Claire. It's another late night. Don't wait up. I forced a smile into my voice, told him to work hard, and hung up. But when the call ended, the silence in the house pressed down harder than ever. The knock came just after 10. Softer this time, almost cautious. My heart thudded painfully as I walked toward the door. When I opened it, Daniel stood there, not demanding, not reckless, but steady. His eyes held mine with a quiet intensity that made it impossible to breathe. Claire, he whispered, this isn't about temptation. It's about truth. You can keep pretending you're fine, or you can let yourself feel what you've been denying. My lips parted, but no words came out. My pulse pounded in my ears, my thoughts a blur. In that instant, I realized the choice wasn't really about him. It was about me, about the emptiness I'd been masking with routine, the loneliness I'd been swallowing in silence. And standing there in the dim light of the doorway, I finally understood why his request had left me speechless. Because it wasn't just his request, it was the voice of something inside me I hadn't dared to admit. I didn't step forward. I didn't step back. I just stood frozen, caught in the storm of what was right, what was wrong, and what I truly wanted. That night, nothing happened. But deep down, I knew this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning of a choice I could no longer ignore.